The ship fell from the sky like a burning star. It broke through the clouds of Cathara Prime and crashed into the rocky ground with a sound that echoed across the mountains. Fire and smoke rose high into the air. Metal pieces scattered everywhere. The ship called Wanderer had carried 150 humans from Earth. They were looking for a new home among the stars. They found only death. On this moon, there lived creatures that humans had never seen before. They were called the Dracarin. They looked like dragons from old Earth stories, but they were real and they were huge. Each one stood 40 feet tall. Their scales were harder than any metal humans had ever made. They could breathe fire hot enough to melt rock. They had ruled this moon for 10,000 years, and they did not like visitors. When the ship crashed, the dragons came to see what had fallen from the sky. High Commander Zarketh led them. He was a warrior with scars across his face and hate in his eyes. He had fought many wars against other species. He had won them all. When he saw the burning ship and the dead humans inside, he felt nothing but anger. "Humans," he growled. "Weak little things. They have crashed on our sacred breeding grounds. This is where our eggs are kept safe. This is Holy Land." The other dragons agreed. Lady Sirenthra, who kept all their ancient books and laws, said they should burn everything. Leave nothing behind. Pretend the humans had never come, but there was one dragon who did not agree. His name was Vithros, and he was the oldest dragon alive. His scales had turned from black to gray with age. His fire was not as strong as it once was, but his mind was sharp, and he could see things that others could not. Vithros walked through the burning wreckage slowly. He stepped over broken metal and shattered glass. He could smell death everywhere. But he could also smell something else. Something alive. He found the boy under a piece of the ship. The child was small, maybe 7 years old, with brown hair and green eyes full of tears. He was holding a torn blanket close to his chest. Next to him lay 2 adults, a man and a woman. They were not moving. They would never move again. The boy looked up at Vithros. The old dragon was huge, bigger than anything the child had ever seen. His teeth were longer than the boy's arms. His eyes glowed like hot coals. Any other creature would have screamed and run away, but the boy did not scream. He did not run. He just looked at the dragon with his sad green eyes and asked a simple question. "Are you hurt too?" Vithros felt something strange in his chest. In all his thousands of years, no one had ever asked if he was hurt. He was a dragon. Dragons did not get hurt. Dragons did not feel pain. At least, that is what everyone believed. He lowered his great head and looked at the small human. "What is your name, little one?" "Denny," the boy said. "Denny Carter. My mom and dad are sleeping and they will not wake up." Vithros understood. The boy did not know that his parents were dead. Or maybe he did know, but he could not say the words. The old dragon had seen many things in his long life. He had seen wars and death and terrible suffering. But something about this small boy touched a part of him that he thought had died long ago. "Come with me." "Danny Carter," Vithros said. He picked up the boy gently in his claws, being very careful not to hurt him. Then he turned and walked back to where the other dragons waited. Zarketh saw what Vithros was carrying, and his eyes went wide with anger. "What are you doing, old one?" "Put that creature down. We must destroy everything here." "No," Vithros said. His voice was calm but firm. "I claim this child under the old law. The law of Flame's mercy." The dragons went silent. Flame's mercy was an ancient rule, so old that most had forgotten it existed. It said that any dragon could claim an orphan of any species and protect it. The child would become a ward of the Dracarin Council. No one could hurt it? "You cannot be serious," Lady Sirenthra said. "That law was made for dragon orphans, not for these soft little creatures. Humans live such short lives. They are weak. They break easily. What purpose could this serve?" "The law does not say it is only for dragons," Vithros replied. "I have read the old texts more times than you have years in your life, Sirenthra. The law is clear. I claim this boy." Zarketh stepped forward. Smoke came from his nose. This is madness. You would bring a human into our sacred halls? Let it walk among our young? You shame us all, Vithros. I am old, Vithros said. I have earned the right to be a little mad. And I see something in this boy. Something that you cannot see because you have forgotten how to look. The other dragons argued, but they could not change the law. Flame's mercy was written in stone. If Vithros claimed the boy was protected. No dragon could touch him. And so Danny Carter came to live among the dragons. The first years were hard. Danny was so small compared to everyone around him. A dragon's tail could kill him by accident. A sneeze of fire could burn him to ash. He had to learn to be careful, to watch where he walked, to stay away from danger, but he also learned to be brave. When other dragons tried to scare him, he did not run. When they called him names like Little Bug and Soft Skin, he did not cry. He just worked harder. Vithros became like a father to him. The old dragon taught Danny their language. It was not made of words like human language. It was made of growls and roars and patterns of fire. Danny learned to speak it. He learned to read their writing, which was burned into stone walls. He learned their history, their songs, their stories. He also learned that the dragons were not monsters. They had families. They loved their children. They had poets and artists and dreamers. They were afraid of things, just like humans were. They felt lonely and sad and happy and proud. 15 years passed. Danny grew from a scared little boy into a strong young man. He was still small compared to the dragons. He still could not breathe fire or fly. But he understood them better than they understood themselves. When Vithros died, Danny was there beside him. The old dragon's fire had grown weak, just a small blue flame in his chest. Danny held his great claw and did not let go. I have something to tell you, Vithros whispered. I have named you as my heir. When I am gone, you will take my place on the Council of Flames. Danny felt his heart stop. That is not possible. I am human. You are my son, Vithros said. That is all that matters to me. Then the flame went out, and Vithros was gone. The dragons would not accept this. They would never accept a human as their leader. Danny knew that a storm was coming, and he would be standing right in the middle of it. The news of Vithros naming a human as his heir spread across Kethra Prime like wildfire. Dragons in every city and village talked about it. Some laughed. Some grew angry. None of them could believe it was true. Danny stood alone in the cave he had shared with Vithros for 15 years. The walls were covered with burn marks that told stories. Here was the story of how dragons first learned to fly. There was the story of the great war against the stone giants. And in the corner, there was a new story that Vithros had burned just before he died. It showed a small human figure standing among dragons, leading them forward. Danny touched the marks with his fingers. He missed the old dragon so much that his chest hurt. A sound came from the cave entrance. Danny turned and saw his old teacher, Mentor Krithis. He was a smaller dragon, at least by dragon standards. He had taught Danny to read and write in the dragon language. He was one of the few who had ever shown Danny kindness. The council has called a meeting, Krithis said. His voice was sad. They want you to come to the great caldera. Danny, I must warn you. They are very angry. I know, Danny said, but I cannot hide. That would prove them right about humans being weak. Krithis nodded slowly. You are brave, young one. Vithros would be proud, but bravery alone might not save you today. Danny followed his teacher through the tunnels and out into the open air. The sky of Kethra Prime was always orange and red because of the volcanoes. Ash fell like snow. The air smelled of smoke and fire. To Danny, it smelled like home. They flew to the great caldera on the back of a transport dragon who owed Krithis a favor. Danny could not fly on his own, of course. Humans did not have wings. This was just one more thing the dragons would use against him. The great caldera was the most sacred place on Kethra Prime. It was an ancient volcano, so old that even the dragons did not remember when it last exploded. The inside was shaped like a giant bowl, with cliffs of black glass rising on all sides. At the bottom, lava glowed red and orange. In the center was a single tall rock called the Speaking Stone. This was where leaders stood when they addressed the dragon people. When Danny arrived, he saw that thousands of dragons had gathered. They covered the cliffs like scales on a snake. Their eyes glowed in the darkness. The heat from so many dragon bodies made the air shimmer. Danny climbed down from the transport dragon and walked toward the Speaking Stone. His boots made small sounds on the glass ground. Every dragon watched him. He felt like a mouse walking into a room full of cats. He climbed onto the Speaking Stone and stood up straight. He would not show fear. He would not bow his head. Whatever happened, he would face it like Vithros had taught him. High Commander Zarketh landed in front of him with a crash that shook the ground. The war leader was even bigger than Danny remembered. His scales were dark red, almost black, covered with scars from 100 battles. His eyes burned with anger and something else. Something that looked like hate. "So the little bug comes to claim his place," Zarketh said. His voice was loud enough for every dragon to hear. "Look at him. He is so small. I could crush him with one claw. This is what Vithros wanted to lead us? The soft, weak, wingless thing?" Laughter came from the crowd. Danny waited for it to stop. "I did not ask for this," Danny said. His voice was not as loud as Zarketh's, but the caldera carried sound well. Everyone could hear him. "I did not ask to crash on your world. I did not ask to lose my parents. I did not ask to be raised by dragons. But I was, and Vithros chose me. I will not shame his memory by running away." Zarketh snorted. Smoke came from his nose. "Pretty words. But words mean nothing. The Dracaran follow strength. We follow those who can fight and win. What can you fight, human? What can you win?" Lady Sirenthra flew down and landed gracefully beside Zarketh. Her silver scales were beautiful, like mirrors catching the light from the lava below. But her eyes were cold. "The boy speaks of the old one's memory," she said. But Vithros was also old. His mind was not what it used to be. He made a mistake. We should not hold to a dying dragon's foolish words. "It was not a mistake," Danny said firmly. "Vithros was wiser than any of you. He saw things you have forgotten how to see." "Then prove it," Zarketh growled. "If you want to lead us, you must earn it. You must pass a test." The crowd grew quiet. Danny felt cold despite the heat. "What test?" Zarketh smiled, and it was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a hunter who had cornered his prey. "There is a creature that lives beneath this moon, in the deepest caves where even dragonfire cannot reach. Its name is Vorthrek." A sound went through the crowd. Dragons whispered to each other. Some looked scared. Danny had heard stories about Vorthrek. Every dragon child grew up hearing them. Vorthrek was the monster that lived in the dark, the beast that even dragons feared. "Vorthrek is ancient," Sirenthra said. "Older than our civilization. It has killed every creature that ever entered its cave. Warriors, heroes, even our greatest champions. All dead, its venom can melt dragon scales in seconds. Its body is bigger than a starship. No one has ever seen it and lived." Danny felt his mouth go dry. "What do you want me to do?" Zarketh leaned close. His breath was hot enough to hurt. "Touch it," he said. "Go down into the dark. Find Vorthrek. Touch it and return alive. Do this, and maybe we will listen to you. Fail, and we will never speak of humans again." The crowd roared its approval. Dragons stomped their feet and beat their wings. They were excited. They wanted to see Danny fail. They wanted to see him die. Danny looked around at the faces watching him. Most showed hate or amusement. But a few, like Krithis, showed worry. They knew this was not a fair test. It was an execution. He thought about running. He could leave this place. Find a way off this moon. Start a new life somewhere else. Forget about Vithros and the dragons and everything he had known for 15 years. But then he thought about the old dragon who had saved him, who had raised him, who had believed in him when no one else did. What would Vithros think if Danny ran away now? He knew the answer. Vithros would be disappointed. And Danny could not bear that, not even from a dead dragon. I accept, Danny said. The crowd went wild. Dragons cheered and laughed. Zarketh looked pleased with himself. He had expected this. He had wanted this. The human goes to die, someone shouted. Finally, we will be rid of it. Danny climbed down from the speaking stone. His legs felt weak, but he kept walking, one step at a time. He did not look back at the cheering dragons. He did not look at the faces that wanted him dead. He thought about Vorthric waiting in the dark below. A monster so terrible that even dragons ran from it, and somehow Danny Carter was going to touch it and live. He did not know how. He did not have a plan, but he had something else, something that Vithros had given him over 15 years of teaching and kindness. He had hope, the entrance to Vorthrac's domain waited for him at the edge of the caldera. It was a crack in the ground, dark and cold despite the lava nearby. Danny stood at its edge and looked down into nothing. "I'm coming back," he whispered to himself. "I do not know how, but I'm coming back." Then he stepped into the darkness and began to climb down. The darkness was complete. Danny had never known darkness like this. On the surface, there was always some light. The glow of lava, the shine of dragon scales, the stars in the sky. But down here, in the tunnels beneath Kethra Prime, there was nothing. Just black. He moved slowly, feeling his way along the rock walls. The stone was hot under his fingers. He could hear dripping sounds in the distance. Water falling from somewhere far above, turning to steam before it hit the ground. Danny carried a small light that Krithis had given him before he left. It was a dragon scale treated with special chemicals that made it glow softly. The light was weak, but it was enough to see a few feet ahead. The tunnel went down and down. Sometimes it was so narrow that Danny had to turn sideways to fit through. Sometimes it opened into wide caves with ceilings he could not see. Strange crystals grew from the walls, glowing faintly in colors Danny had no names for. He walked for hours. His legs grew tired. His throat was dry from the heat and the bad air. But he kept going. Every step took him closer to Vorthric. Every step took him closer to death, or maybe, just maybe, closer to something else. Danny thought about what he knew of Vorthric. The story said it was a monster. A killer, a beast with no mind and no mercy. But Danny had learned something important in his years with the dragons. Stories were not always true. Sometimes, stories only showed one side of things. He thought about the first time he met Vithros. The old dragon had looked like a monster too. Huge teeth, glowing eyes, fire in his belly. Anyone looking at him would have seen a killer. But Danny had seen something else. He had seen someone who was hurt, someone who was lonely, someone who needed a friend just as much as Danny did. Maybe Vorthric was the same. The tunnel opened suddenly into a vast space. Danny's little light could not reach the walls or ceiling. He was standing at the edge of something huge. The air was thick with heat and a strange smell, something like metal and rot mixed together. He heard breathing. It was not like dragon breathing. Dragon breath was strong and loud like a furnace. This breathing was slow and deep, like the earth itself was taking breaths. Each inhale lasted for many seconds. Each exhale sent waves of hot air washing over Danny's face. He was not alone anymore. Danny stood very still. His heart was beating so fast that he could feel it in his throat. Every part of him wanted to run, to climb back up the tunnel and never come back. But he forced himself to stay. He thought about all the creatures he had met on Kethra Prime. Not just the dragons, but other things too. Small things and big things. Dangerous things that most people stayed away from. There were the fire skippers, little lizards that lived near lava pools. They were fast and their bite was painful. But Danny had learned that if you sat very still and did not look at them directly, they would come close. They were curious. They wanted to see what you were. If you moved slowly and carefully, you could even touch them. There were the lava eels that lived in the hot springs. They had teeth like needles and skin that burned to touch. But Danny had discovered that they liked certain sounds. If you hummed a low note, they would calm down. They would let you pick them up and hold them. And there were the cliff stalkers, big predators that hunted from the high rocks. They had killed many dragons over the years. Everyone said they were evil, mindless killers. But Danny had watched them for months. He had seen them care for their young. He had seen them play with each other when they thought no one was looking. He had learned to walk through their territory without fear. Because he understood them, every creature had a way to be approached. Every creature had a language, even if it was not made of words. Danny believed this with all his heart. He took a step forward into the dark. The breathing changed. It got faster. Danny heard something moving in the blackness. Something huge. He felt the ground shake slightly under his feet. "I am not here to hurt you," Danny said softly. His voice sounded small in the vast cave. "I am not a warrior. I have no weapons. I just want to meet you." The movement stopped. The breathing slowed again. Whatever was out there in the dark, it was listening. Danny sat down on the hot stone floor. He crossed his legs and put his hands on his knees. He made himself as small and calm as he could. "My name is Danny," he said. "I am a human. I crashed on this moon when I was very young. The dragons raised me. Now they want me to die, so they sent me to you." No response. Just that slow, deep breathing. "I know you have killed many creatures," Danny continued. "I know everyone is afraid of you. But I wonder if maybe that is not the whole story. I wonder if maybe you are just like everyone else, trying to survive, trying to protect yourself." He closed his eyes. The darkness outside was the same as the darkness inside now. He focused on his breathing. He tried to match it to the rhythm he could feel coming from the creature in front of him. In, out, slow and steady. Time passed. Danny did not know how much. It could have been minutes or hours. His body hurt from the heat. His skin was wet with sweat. But he did not move. He thought about his mother. He could barely remember her face anymore. Just small things. The smell of her hair. The sound of her voice when she sang to him at night. There was a song she used to sing about stars and faraway places. About always finding your way home, no matter how lost you were. Danny began to hum the song. He did not remember all the words, but the tune was still there in his heart. It was soft and slow, a melody meant for quiet nights and sleepy children. The breathing in the cave changed. It was not scared or angry anymore. It was something else. Something curious. Danny opened his eyes. In the faint glow of his little light, he saw movement. Something was coming closer. He could see it now, just barely. A shape in the darkness. It was huge, bigger than anything he had ever seen. Bigger than the biggest dragon. Bigger than the ship that had brought him to this moon. The ancient worm moved like a river of shadow. Its body stretched back into the darkness, seeming to go on forever. Its scales were not like dragon scales. They were dull and rough, like old metal left in the rain. And they dripped with something thick and shiny. The venom that could melt anything it touched. But the most surprising thing was its face. Where eyes should have been, there was only smooth skin. Vorthric was blind. It had lived so long in the darkness that it did not need eyes anymore. Its head was as big as a house. It came closer and closer to Danny. He could feel the heat coming off its body. He could smell the sharp tang of its venom. Danny did not move. He kept humming the song. He kept breathing slowly. He kept believing. Vorthric stopped just a few feet away. Its massive head turned from side to side. It was sensing him, smelling him, feeling the vibrations of his heartbeat through the stone floor. Then it made a sound. Not a roar or a growl. It was more like a question. A deep rumbling that Danny felt in his bones. "I am not afraid of you," Danny said quietly. "And I do not think you want to hurt me. I think you are just alone. I think you have been alone for a very long time." The creature made the sound again. It was softer now. Danny slowly raised his hand. He held it out in front of him. palm open, fingers spread, the same way he had greeted the fire skippers and the cliff stalkers and all the other creatures he had befriended over the years. "It is okay," he said. "I understand." Vorthric moved. Its great head came forward. Danny held his breath, and then the monster touched his hand. The scales were cool against Danny's palm. This surprised him more than anything else. He had expected burning heat. He had expected pain. But the skin of the ancient worm was smooth and cool, like stones at the bottom of a river. Danny did not pull away. He kept his hand pressed against Vorthric's snout. He could feel the creature breathing, in, out, slow and deep, like waves on a distant shore. "There you are," Danny whispered. "You are not a monster at all, are you?" Vorthric made a low sound. It rumbled through Danny's arm and into his chest. The sound was not angry or threatening. It was something else. Something sad that Danny understood now. The venom that dripped from Vorthric's scales was not always there. It came when the creature was scared or angry, when it felt threatened. But when it was calm, when it felt safe, the venom stopped. All those dragons who had come to fight Vorthric over the years, they had come with fire and weapons and war cries. They had come to kill, and Vorthric had defended itself the only way it knew how. It had fought back. It had killed them before they could kill it, but no one had ever come just to say hello. No one had ever sat down in the darkness and hummed a soft song. No one had ever treated Vorthric like a friend instead of an enemy, until now. Danny moved his hand slowly along the creature's snout. The scales were old. Some were cracked. Some were missing. This beast had lived for so long, alone in the dark, with no one to care for it. "How long have you been down here?" Danny asked. He did not expect an answer. Vorthric could not speak, but asking the question felt right. The worm shifted its great body. The movement shook the ground. Danny heard stones falling somewhere in the distance. Then Vorthric did something unexpected. It lay down, its massive head rested on the stone floor next to Danny, its body curled around him in a great circle, like a cat settling down to sleep. The heat from its body warmed the air, but it was not uncomfortable anymore. It felt almost nice. Danny sat down next to the creature's head. He kept one hand on its scales. He could feel Vorthrac's heartbeat through the stone. It was slow, maybe one beat every 10 seconds. The heart of something ancient and tired. "You are lonely," Danny said. "Just like I was lonely when I first came here. The dragons did not want me either. They thought I was weak and strange. They did not understand me." Vorthric made a soft sound, a kind of sigh. "But one dragon was different," Danny continued. "His name was Vithros. He saw something in me that others could not see. He took care of me. He taught me. He made me feel like I belonged." Danny felt tears in his eyes. He had not cried since Vithros died. He had been too busy trying to be strong. But here, in the darkness with this ancient creature, he did not need to be strong. "I miss him so much," Danny said. His voice broke. "He was the only father I ever really knew. And now he is gone, and everyone wants me to fail. Everyone wants me to die." Vorthric moved its head slightly. Its snout pressed against Danny's side. The gesture was gentle, almost comforting. Like the creature was trying to say that it understood. They sat together for a long time. Danny talked. He told Vorthric about his life. About the crash. About learning to live among dragons. About the happy times and the hard times. About his dreams and his fears. Vorthric listened. It could not understand the words, Danny knew that, but it understood the feelings behind them. It understood loneliness and loss and hope. These were feelings that did not need language. When Danny finally stopped talking, he felt lighter, like he had put down a heavy weight that he had been carrying for years. "Thank you," he said to Vorthric. "Thank you for listening." The creature rumbled softly. Danny looked around the vast cave. He could see more now. His eyes had adjusted to the darkness, and Vorthrac's body gave off a faint glow. The heat from within it made its scales shine dimly. The cave was beautiful in its own way. Crystals grew from the walls in strange shapes. Underground streams made tiny waterfalls that turned to steam before hitting the ground. This was not a prison. It was a home, but it was a lonely home. I have to go back, Danny said. I have to show them that I am alive, that I touched you, that their test did not kill me. Vorthric lifted its head. A sound came from its throat. This one was different from the others. It was higher, almost like a question, almost like asking Danny to stay. I know, Danny said. I do not want to leave either, but I have to. There are things I need to do up there, things I promised Vithros I would try to do. He stood up slowly. His body was stiff from sitting so long. His clothes were torn and burned in places. He looked like a man who had walked through fire, which was not far from the truth. Vorthric rose with him. The great worm towered over Danny, its body stretching up into the darkness above. But it did not seem scary anymore. It seemed sad. Danny reached out and touched the creature's snout one more time. I will come back, he said. I promise you. You will not be alone anymore. Vorthric pressed its head against Danny's hand. Then slowly it moved aside. It opened a path to the tunnel that led back to the surface. Danny began to walk. Each step was hard. Not because he was tired, though he was very tired, but because leaving felt wrong. He had found a friend in the deepest darkness, and now he had to leave that friend behind. When he reached the tunnel entrance, he turned back. Vorthric was watching him, or sensing him at least. Its eyeless face was pointed in his direction. I meant what I said, Danny called out. I will return. Then he began the long climb back to the surface. The journey up was harder than the journey down. Danny's body was exhausted. The heat made it hard to breathe. Several times he had to stop and rest against the tunnel walls, but he kept going. One step at a time. Hand over hand on the rocks. Climbing toward the light, he thought about what waited for him above. Zarketh would be furious. The war commander had expected Danny to die. Having a human survive Vorthrac's cave would make him look foolish. Sirenthro would be confused. The Keeper of Laws prided herself on knowing everything. But she did not know that Vorthric could be gentle. She did not know that monsters were sometimes just lonely creatures wearing scary masks. And the other dragons, the ones who had cheered for Danny's death, what would they think? Would they accept him now? Would they believe that he was worthy to lead them? Danny did not know. But he knew one thing for certain. He had touched Vorthric and lived. He had done what no dragon had ever done. And that had to count for something. When he finally reached the surface, the light of the lava was blinding. Danny stumbled out of the tunnel and fell to his knees. The air was fresher here, though still hot and thick with ash. He looked up and saw dragons circling in the sky above him. They had been waiting. They had been watching the tunnel entrance for 3 days. He lifted his hand and waved. The dragons stopped circling. For a moment, nothing happened. Then one of them dove down toward him. It was Krithis, his old teacher. The mentor landed next to Danny with a crash. His eyes were wide with shock and something that looked like joy. You are alive, Krithis said. His voice was shaking. Danny, you are alive. I told you I would come back, Danny said. He was smiling, though he did not have much energy for it. Did you doubt me? Yes, Krithis admitted. But I am very happy to be wrong. Other dragons were landing now. Soon a crowd had gathered. They all stared at Danny like he was a ghost. Maybe to them he was. Take me to the council, Danny said. I have something to tell them. Krithis helped him onto his back. As they flew toward the great caldera, Danny looked back at the dark tunnel he had climbed out of. Somewhere down there, Vorthric was waiting. Soon, Danny promised. I will keep my word. The great caldera was full again. Every dragon on Cathara Prime had come to see the human who had walked into death and walked out again. They covered the black glass cliffs like scales on an endless snake. Their eyes glowed in the darkness. The air shook with the sound of thousands of wings. Danny stood on the speaking stone once more. He was dirty and tired. His clothes were rags. Burns covered his arms and face. He looked like a man who had been through a war, but he was standing. He was alive. And that changed everything. High Commander Zarkith landed before him. The great warrior's face was twisted with confusion and anger. He had been so sure that Danny would die. He had already planned what to say when they found the human's bones. How? Zarkith demanded. His voice boomed across the caldera. How did you survive? What trick did you use? Danny shook his head slowly. No tricks. I just did what you asked. I went down. I found Vorthrek. I touched it. A murmur ran through the crowd. Dragons whispered to each other. This could not be real. This could not be true. You are lying, Zarkith growled. No one can touch Vorthrek and live. Its venom kills everything. Its venom comes when it is scared, Danny said. When someone attacks it or threatens it. But when it is calm, when it feels safe, there is no venom. The scales are cool and smooth. You could rest your hand on them all day and feel nothing but warmth. Zarkith snorted. Smoke rose from his nose. You expect us to believe that the most dangerous creature on our world is actually peaceful? That you just walked up and petted it like a tame animal? Not tame, Danny said. Never tame. But lonely. Vorthrek has been alone in that cave for thousands of years. Everyone who ever visited came to kill it. Warriors with weapons and fire. It defended itself because it had to. But I did not come to fight. I came to listen. Lady Saranthra flew down to land beside Zarkith. Her silver scales caught the light from the lava below. This is a pretty story, human. But stories are not proof. How do we know you actually found Vorthrek? How do we know you did not just hide in the tunnels for 3 days? Danny looked at her calmly. You could send someone to check. Vorthrek will not hurt them if they come peacefully. Laughter came from the crowd. The idea of a dragon going peacefully to meet Vorthrek seemed funny to them. Or, Danny continued, you could trust me. You could believe that I am telling the truth, even though I am human. Even though I am small and soft and have no wings or fire. He turned to face the whole assembly. His voice grew stronger. I know what you think of me. I know you see me as weak. I know you think Vithros made a mistake when he chose me. But let me tell you what I learned down there in the dark. The crowd went quiet. Even Zarkith stopped growling. Vorthrek is not a monster. It is a creature that has been alone for so long that it forgot what friendship feels like. It has been feared and hated for centuries. Everyone runs from it or attacks it. No one ever just sat with it. No one ever asked if it was okay. Danny took a breath. And when I was down there, I realized something. The Dracarin are the same. Angry sounds came from the dragons. Some roared in protest. Zarkith's eyes blazed with fury. How dare you compare us to that beast? The commander snarled. I do not mean it as an insult, Danny said quickly. I mean that you have forgotten something important. You are so focused on being strong, on being feared, on winning every battle, that you have forgotten how to connect with others. You have forgotten how to be gentle. He pointed at the burn marks on the caldera walls. Ancient writing that told the history of the Dracarin? I have read your oldest stories. I know your history better than most of you do. Once, long ago, the Dracarin made friendships with other species. You had alliances built on trust and respect, not fear. You were teachers and healers and builders, not just warriors. The crowd was listening now. Even the angry dragons had grown quiet. Somewhere along the way, you lost that. You decided that strength meant crushing your enemies. That power meant making everyone afraid. And yes, it worked. You conquered many worlds. You won many wars. But what did it cost you? Danny looked around at the thousands of dragons watching him. You are alone now. Every other species in this galaxy fears you or hates you. You have no friends, no allies. When trouble comes, you have no one to help you. Just like Vorthrek in its cave, you sit in the darkness and wonder why everyone runs away. The silence stretched on. Danny could feel the weight of it pressing down on him. Zarkith stepped forward. His claws scraped on the stone. You speak boldly for a creature I could destroy with one breath. Yes, Danny agreed. You could kill me right now? It would be easy, but that would only prove my point. That violence is all you know anymore. That you have forgotten how to solve problems any other way. He turned to face Zarkith directly. They were so different, the huge dragon and the small human. One was made for war. The other was made for something else entirely. I did not survive Vorthrek because I am strong, Danny said. I survived because I was gentle, because I sat down and listened, because I treated a terrifying creature with kindness and respect. And it worked. He held out his hand toward Zarkith, the same gesture he had made to Vorthrek in the cave. Palm open, fingers spread. An offer of peace. I do not want to lead you through fear. I do not want to be a warrior king who crushes everyone under my foot. I want to help you remember what you used to be. I want to show you that there are other kinds of strength. Zarkith stared at the offered hand. His eyes were unreadable. The whole caldera held its breath. Vithros saw something in me when I was a child, Danny continued. He saw that humans are not weak. We are different. We survive not by being the strongest or the fastest, but by connecting with others. By making friends, by understanding creatures that are nothing like us. He kept his hand extended. It did not shake. He was not afraid. Let me help you. Let me show you what I showed Vorthrek. That you do not have to be alone. That gentleness is not weakness. That the fire within is not just for burning things down. For a long moment, nothing happened. Zarkith stood frozen, staring at Danny's hand. The crowd waited. The lava bubbled far below. The air was thick with tension. Then, slowly, the great war commander lowered his head. His snout came down until it was level with Danny's palm. And then he touched it. The gesture was unmistakable. Acceptance, respect, not submission, but acknowledgement. An admission that maybe, just maybe, this small human had something to teach them. A sound of surprise went through the crowd. Then, one by one, other dragons began to fly down. They landed around the speaking stone in great circles. Each one lowered their head. Each one touched their snout to the ground near Danny's feet. Lady Serenthra was among the last. She met Danny's eyes for a long moment. Then she too lowered her head. Perhaps, she said quietly, Vithros was wiser than any of us knew. Danny felt tears on his face. He touched each dragon that came to him. Not the touch of a conqueror, but the touch of a friend. A brother. A son of the Dracaran who happened to look a little different from the rest. When the last dragon had paid their respects, Danny climbed down from the speaking stone. He walked through the crowd and they parted to let him pass. Not out of fear. Out of something new. Something that felt like the beginning of change. He found Krithis waiting at the edge of the caldera. The old mentor's eyes were wet. What happens now? Krithis asked. Danny looked up at the sky of Kethra Prime, the orange clouds. The distant stars. The endless universe waiting out there. Now we go back down, he said. All of us. We visit Vorthrek. We introduce ourselves properly. We start making things right? Krithis nodded slowly. It will not be easy. Changing thousands of years of tradition. No, Danny agreed. It will not be easy. But nothing worth doing ever is. Far below them, in the deepest caves beneath the moon, an ancient creature stirred. It had felt something through the stone, vibrations, footsteps. Not just one small human this time, but many creatures. Coming closer, Vorthrek lifted its great head and waited. For the first time in millennia, it was not waiting for an enemy. It was waiting for a friend, and above, as the dragons began to sing an ancient song of welcome that had not been heard for thousands of years, Danny Carter smiled. The orphan boy from a crashed ship had found his home at last. Not despite being human, but because of it. The fire within, Vithros had always said, comes in many forms. Danny finally understood what his old teacher had meant. The fire within was not about destruction. It was about light, about warmth, about the courage to reach out in the darkness and trust that something good, would reach back. The Dracarin were learning this now, and the galaxy would never be the same.